This is KSP Breaking News, the hottest and the craziest news from the Kerbal attempts to reach the stars and dominate the solar system. The breaking news is brought to you by GrunfWorks, a one-man reporter show bringing you all the action straight from the Kerbal Space Center. The main focus on today's news is the progress of the development of our SSTO-1, with scientists and engineers continuing to innovate on the current design until a satisfactory solution is found. Design approaches were tested, and the conclusions that the Panther engines are way too slow to achieve sufficient speed on them alone for any satisfactory hypersonic flight. After examining the various approaches, the gaps in the designs are slowly being filled. First approach consisted of two side boosters that would be attached to wingtips, giving the spaceplane a vertical takeoff profile. However, detaching these side boosters mid-flight resulted in a drastic shift in the center of mass for the whole vessel, resulting in some cool backflips, but with no progress towards any serious spaceworthy endeavor. The main benefit of the initial approach was the introduction of vertical landing capability through the abort sequence, which the spaceplane shall keep all the way into its final design. Second approach considered one major booster shuttle style with the offset center of mass, which initially has shown some great promise, but was also dismissed due to the many stability concerns. The last test performed by Jeb and Bill has completely pancaked the spaceplane, putting a final nail to the coffin of the shuttle design. Final approach was actually the smallest deviation from the initial design and only included a pair of drop tanks and replacing the wing tanks from the liquid fuel only to the LFO. This has greatly increased the spaceplane's ability to exit the atmosphere, while liquid fuel-only drop tanks provided just enough oomph to secure the takeoff and the initial course setting on the Panther engines. And then a joint push from the Panther's afterburners and two swivels at the rear of the plane propelled the spaceplane out of the Kerbin's atmosphere, ensuring its ability to launch satellites in a reusable fashion in the future. Furthermore, the last performed test, the SSTO was able to take off from the KSC runway, eject out of the Kerbin's atmosphere, and deploy a small communications relay into the low Kerbin orbit, followed by a successful re-entry and landing on the grassy plains of Kerbin, thus securing a future for any other spaceplane design to follow. In other news, remote-controlled program has entered its next phase. Scientists were eager to build the first interplanetary probe that shall be sent to our nearest planetary neighbor, Duna. Its design process was not without problems, however. Due to the lack of proper engineering and common sense, the initial design had problems with boosters crashing into the main stack on separation. With the involvement of the engineers, the issue was quickly resolved and the first Kerbal interplanetary mission was underway. The probe has successfully launched into the low Kerbin orbit, performed the ejection towards Duna, entered its sphere of influence, causing a massive surge of pride and appreciation among all of the KSC employees. The pride has succumbed shortly though, as the engineers have discovered that the antennas that they have put on the probe did not have a large enough communications range, resulting effectively losing the contact with the probe for nearly a full year. However, given that the probe was on the return trajectory, the signal was later reacquired almost a year later, setting the course to bring the stray probe back home to Kerbin. The probe has re-entered the Kerbin atmosphere and was successfully recovered. Actually, the parts of the probe were successfully recovered and new protocols were put into place on the mandatory usage of heat shields in future designs. If you will be interested in more into the design and construction of the probe itself, be sure to check out next week's design special of Kerbal Engineering, coming to you next Tuesday. This has been KSP News, and I have been your host, GrunfWorks. See you all next week for another exciting round of KSP News right here on this channel.